Hey everyone, welcome to Chipstock Investor. I'm Casey,
And I'm Nick.
and we're kicking off earnings season with one of the Fab Five, ASML.
And specifically, what we want to talk about with ASML is, has the guidance changed for the rest of 2025? They had already downgraded their revenue guidance to the bottom end of the midterm 2025 revenue range in November 2024. Let's see if, with all of the tariff turmoil, if things have changed.
Make sure you hit the subscribe button right here, and also make sure you check out Semi Insider membership in the link below. We're having a sale on our annual memberships. That discount code is also in the video description. Our insider members got this information first via a live Q&A discussion. If you would like access to that, check it out below. 2025 was going to be great for chip stocks, but did tariffs in the party before it all started? Total net sales, 7.7 billion euros. Revenue up 46% year over year from the depressed sales in Q1 2024. Earnings per share came in at 6 euros per share. That's up 93% year over year. And then net bookings, which a lot of investors focus on, 3.9 billion euros. We'll talk about why that metric is a bit of noise.
Yeah, let's double click on that, add some color. What am I missing? Let's unpack net bookings a little bit more, Casey.
Don't even start.
Earnings season is so back. A little more detail on the net bookings. It's noise. We'll emphasize this. You can see net bookings all the way back to Q1 2024. This was an investor freakout moment a year ago as well, 3.6 billion euro, which missed expectations, and it remained pretty lackluster through the first 3 quarters of 2024. Another freak out there in Q3 2024, but all along the way, revenue continued to ramp up. We have it highlighted there at the top. And then the big bookings increase in Q4. Then we're back down again. Remember, bookings is not money in the bank. It's just indications of customers ordering equipment. And it's a lumpy metric. And for a company as big as ASML, and especially one dealing with a lot of geopolitics and the tariff issues right now, we should expect this number to be highly variable from one quarter to the next. No reason here to worry. Let's continue here. System sales breakdown. This is going to work in tandem with the video and the research notes we put out on Monday, which was a follow-up to some questions we had a couple weeks ago about whether or not we're headed for a big bear market for semiconductor stocks.
And we'll circle back to this at the end of the discussion, but sales have already normalized to China from that revenue that was elevated during the pandemic era backlog. So this is all reflected in the declining quarter over quarter lithography unit sales of everything except for EUV. On the right side, EUV has stayed flat, 14 EUV machines in both of these quarters, Q4 and then Q1 of 2025, versus everything else that has declined. And you can notice that those sales in this particular quarter in South Korea, think SK Hynix and Samsung, and then Taiwan, TSMC making up a bigger portion of the pie, picking up the slack for ASML. And we really expect that these geographies, as well as the US, to heat up as 2025 progresses.
Yeah, and that's obviously going to probably be precipitated by the T word at the moment, tariffs, or T words, tariffs and trade war. But do focus on the EUV sales, extreme ultraviolet sales, including high NA, which is just beginning to ramp up, staying stable during this period of heightened uncertainty. But all of the DUV equipment, the older generation stuff, including both wet and dry lithography, all the way down to the I-line models, in decline. So everything normalizing and recentering on EUV equipment. And in the midst of this is a fantastic little bit of news, because in the midst of the uncertainty, ASML is essentially buying the dip of its own stock. Purchased $2.7 billion worth of stock in Q1, expected a bit of dividend increase as well. So you can see those shareholder returns in the bottom right, increasing up and to the right at a steady pace. just remember, folks, I think a lot of investors still want ASML to be like this high growth fireworks stock, but this is very much a growth and income business these days. Over the next 5 years, expect this to be a bit of growth, which we'll show you here in our next slide, complemented by those shareholder returns. Don't expect anything wild in the high growth department from ASML these days. And that's plenty okay, though. All right. This is actually from the 2022 Investor Day, almost 3 years ago.
Outlining all of their financial targets starting in 2021 all the way to 2030. And the 2030 numbers were just confirmed in November. So the question is, are we still on track for 2025? We made this chart for the updated targets that ASML gave us. They said we're tossing out the 35 to 40 billion euro number and expect closer to 30 to 35 billion euro in 2025 instead. And that midpoint of guidance from 2025 to 2030 is 11% revenue CAGR.
Yeah, no fireworks. 11% CAGR is plenty good, not high growth, but plenty good, and that's okay. Add that with a growing dividend and stock buybacks. This is still a very solid business. So the good news here, again, in spite of all the geopolitical concerns, is that guidance for 2025 was once again reaffirmed. Again, they'll continue increasing that dividend gradually and doing stock repurchases. We're going to trust management's word on this until they tell us otherwise, since they're the ones that are engaging with governments on what is a very fluid situation right now regarding trade and onshoring. Let's just stick with what ASML is saying, 30 to 35 billion. We wouldn't be surprised if it maybe comes in closer to the 30 billion euro mark by year end, but we'd be happy to take the surprise. Either way, this is going to be a bit of a growth year for ASML off of what was a depressed 2024. Let's go down memory lane. This was our slide from actually this very week 1 year ago, Q1 2024. Casey, we took serious heat from the YouTube commenter community on this slide in particular.
Yeah, at this time, ASML stock price was around 900 to 1,000 euro per share. And we said, no, we're not buying anymore at that time. It was just a hold rating for us. And then fast forward a year later, and the same people are calling for a decline in the semi industry after the stock is down 30 to 40% from its peak. So what does that mean for us now? Here's our updated outlook.
By the end of 2024, we had begun warming back up to the Fab 5 and other fab equipment companies. Despite what the internet thinks it knows, we actually have been in pretty depressed times for most of the semiconductor industry, excluding accelerated computing, for several years now. It has not been great. However, ASML stock price has come down significantly. The outlook for growth this year is heating up. And if all goes to plan, especially with some of the onshoring events, hopefully transpiring, hopefully we'll get some more clarity on that sooner than later for 2025 and 2026. ASML has a good runway of growth, a good little cycle about to ramp up for these companies. So I take issue with these folks that are out there calling for this stock a buy a year ago when it's at all-time highs, clearly overvalued at the time. And management was very clear about its outlook for 2024. Really, at the end of 2023, they were pretty clear about what to expect for 2024. It transpired as they said it would. And now those same people saying it's time to stay clear of ASML and the other Fab 5 companies, I don't know. If you're listening to those people and buying high and selling low, you're investing wrong. What do we mean by the Fab 5? ASML, Applied Materials, Lam Research, Tokyo Electron, KLA Core, and then all the other equipment companies. Now, before we close this out, on the introductory screen, we talked about the industry stock list for semiconductor fab and chip packaging equipment. Now, that's an index that we actually put together over 2 years ago, and it is available to semiconductor insiders. Also in the published manual that went out in April of 2024, we will be updating that list, including which companies are in our personal index for fab equipment and chip packaging companies. So be sure to check that out as well.
All right, that's a wrap on this quarter's earnings report for ASML.
We'll be back next week with more earnings coverage. We have Netflix that just reported. By the time this video publishes, Semi Insiders will already have access to our initial take on Netflix. So again, check that out. Sale on that annual membership.
Once again, make sure you sub to the channel, like the video, share with your friends, and we'll see you all again very soon at Chipstock Investor.